Hello my friends and welcome to the channel. This is Thordrenick and welcome to Battle for Azeroth. So now that my warrior is up to level 120 and is decently into the gearing up process, I thought it was a good time to start making videos again. I know it's been a very busy week for probably most of us. Probably there hasn't been a lot of time for videos, but we are where we need to be for now, and so we're going to start getting BFA content out there. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about what I'm doing in the gearing up process and some ideas that hopefully you guys already know about, and if you don't, then this should help you in the gearing up process. So what are the different things that we need to do to gear up? Well, the first thing is obviously you need to get to 120. So you level up to 120, and then there's a lot that you can do that rewards gear. There's also some important things to do that don't reward gear that we'll mention briefly. But to begin with, the first thing that you'll want to do is make sure that you have world quests unlocked. Now to do that, you need to get the 3 zone factions for your faction, whether that's Horde or Alliance, up to at least friendly, and then you need to unlock all 3 of the flight paths, or all 3 of the bases in the other islands. So it would be Zandalar if you are Alliance, and Kultiras if you are Horde. And you need to unlock just the first 3 initial areas for the war campaign. Once you've done that, you'll be able to unlock world quests, and that's important because world quests are very quick and reward gear that scales up with your item level as you gear up. So they're not the best source of gear that's going to get you straight into mythic dungeons, but they are a good source of gear that is going to help you out as things are getting started, and it's a good predictable source of gear because you can open up the map and say, you know, there's a world quest right here that offers gloves. Well, hey, this is a pretty decent upgrade for my gloves, so I'm going to go do that world quest right now. So that's the first thing that I would do, is make sure that you have world quests unlocked. Make sure that you're doing your emissary caches every day, because those can also give you pretty nice pieces of gear. And then make sure that you're doing world quests that drop items that are upgrades, or at least potential upgrades, for every slot, just so that you can make sure you're covering all of those bases. The second thing that you need to do is do a lot of normal and then heroic and then mythic dungeons as you are able to. So when you're first getting started, you probably won't be able to queue for heroic dungeons yet, but normal dungeons drop item level 310 gear. This is good because you need an item level of 305 in order to queue for heroics. You can obviously go into heroic dungeons if you have a full group without being that item level yet, but if you want to use the group finder, if you don't have a very active guild, or if you don't have people that want to bother going to those dungeons, then you'll need to get up to at least 305, and normal dungeons are going to be one of the fastest and most efficient ways to do that. Now, one thing that we found is that queuing for a random normal dungeon as a DPS was taking over an hour, but queuing for specific dungeons as a DPS was taking just a few minutes. So you may want to check that out if you open up the queue and it says the wait time's 1 hour, and you're like, how am I supposed to get gear? I'm not even guaranteed to get a piece of loot in this dungeon, and I have to wait around for an hour just to get in. Try queuing for just a few of the normal dungeons, and try specifically the ones that are for your faction, because that way you will be including players that are not yet level 120 in your potential pool of players to get in the dungeon with, and that should speed things up a lot, because there will be a lot more tanks and healers that are not yet 120 that are queuing for normal dungeons. If you can tank or heal, I would suggest just biting the bullet and doing it in normal dungeons, because that'll give you such a faster queue time. Both tanks and healers, well, tanks at least have pretty much instant queues. I've done a couple of dungeons with healers, and the queues have been very fast for them as well. So I would suggest doing that. Get most of your initial gear through normal dungeons. Use world quests to fill in the gaps. If there are world quests up that have an item that is not an upgrade, it's a side grade, I would suggest holding off on those for a little bit. Obviously you want to get them done for the chance of Warforging or Titan Forging before they expire, but if you have a world quest up for 18 hours, try to run a few dungeons first, because if you can get a few dungeons in, and you get more upgrades, the item level on those world quests can go up, and then maybe it will be an upgrade after you do a couple of dungeons. So after you've done normal dungeons, you will be able to get into heroic dungeons, which drop a baseline of item level 325 loot and have a chance to Titan Forge up to at least 340. I believe things can go up to 355 right now, but I did get a couple of pieces of 340 loot from heroic dungeons already. I got this trinket right here, and then these bracers as well, which have a socket that I haven't filled out yet. But yeah, so do heroic dungeons. That'll get you up to a decent enough item level to start doing mythic dungeons, and this is where things are really going to start picking up. Because once you get into mythic dungeons, you get 340 gear, but it's all epic, and the Azurite gear is epic, which means it has an extra ring of traits. So you will want to get those done as quickly as you can, get into those as quickly as you can, and once you're doing those, you should start to get some really valuable gear that's going to help you out once we get into raids. So do those things, and then one other tip that I would give you is go check the auction house and see if there's any items that are up at rates for under what they should be selling. I'll give you an example. So I got this 350 two-handed weapon for just 200k gold. This probably could have been going for 2 million gold, and it was on the auction house for 200k. So I picked it up because, hey, gold's not that big of an issue for most of us these days. So just check the auction house, see if there's any steals up, see if there's anything that kind of fills in the gaps. Maybe you haven't been able to get a pair of boots, but there's a pair of boots on the auction house for 10,000 gold that are only item level 300, but if your current boots are only like 250, that's a pretty big upgrade for you. So check that out as well. Make sure that you're getting your professions up. Depending on what professions you have, you might be able to make some pieces of gear to help you get those item levels to get over the hurdle into heroic dungeons. There's obviously not a set limit for mythic dungeons, but there is a limit in that the player base is not going to take you if you are too low, especially as a DPS. So you want to boost your item level as much as you can if you're doing a lot of pugging, and you still want to boost it if you're doing less pugging, if you're going with guild groups, because having more health and having more strength, more stats, it's just going to increase your damage and make your dungeons faster and smoother. So those are the things that I would recommend. Get your world quests unlocked, do the ones that give you upgrades, run normal dungeons until you can run heroic dungeons until your gear is mostly filled out from there, and then run mythic dungeons. You want to be able to run every mythic dungeon every week early in BFA here. Very important to do that if you want to stay ahead on the gearing process. So do all of those things, and then check the auction house for any steals. You might find something that's going to be a huge upgrade and last you into raids for smaller amounts than you think. That's probably unlikely, but you might get lucky, and I think it's worth taking a few minutes just to go check things out. Thank you guys for joining us in this video. If you like what you see and you want to see more BFA content, please consider subscribing to the channel. We're putting out a couple videos a week. We will have a stream tonight starting around 10 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. And that's a wrap for this video. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for all of the support and all the love on the channel. I really, truly appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a great day, a great weekend, and I will see you in that next video. Peace.